So first of all, you guys are doing the best possible thing you could be doing for your future already. You're getting an education. You're investing in yourself. Nothing replaces that. And you're getting a good education here, so I'm not going to pretend to tell you anything else about your education or the information you're going to need to be successful in the business world. But I can give you some career advice. So I'm going to try to do that. And it's not going to be career advice like the obvious. You know you got to work hard, right? You know you got to be the best person at your job if you want to get the next job. You know you got to show up for work and all that basic stuff. I hope I'm going to give you about 7 things maybe you haven't thought of that have happened to me in 25 years that I didn't exactly see coming, and I sure wish somebody had sat me down to talk to me about it. Somehow I have escaped disaster in a 25-year career at Geico. Some of it's really been blind luck. So I'm going to try to make it be a little less luck for you, try to help you with something. We'll try to make it a little fun too, okay? The best way I know to do that is just to tell you our story. You'll understand why it's our story pretty soon, and that'll be the first lesson we'll talk about, okay? We'll have time for questions at the end too. Please participate. Try to make it fun, okay? Otherwise, I'll get bored and I'll just leave. This, squeaky stage, this is my dad's mom and dad. You can see the house behind them. I wish we had a better picture of the house. Here's what I want you to understand. My dad was the 11th of 12 kids born to a family of sharecroppers in Greenwood, Mississippi in 1933. Outdoor toilet, no plumbing, no electricity, 4 rooms in the house, and he and 5 of his brothers and sisters slept in the same bed. So here's the first thing I'll teach you that you don't know. If 6 people sleep in one bed, you sleep head, toe, head, toe, head, toe. I didn't know that either. It makes sense, right, though? You put all your heads together. My dad, at 16, a gentleman from the Salvation Army named Jimmy Walker, he's passed away now, asked my dad's mother if he could take my dad with him to Columbus, Mississippi to help my dad get out of the poverty that they were living in and stuck in Greenwood, and give him a chance because he thought he had potential. He went. So lesson number 1, you will not do it alone. I could have said you can't do it alone. You probably can. You probably think you can. Even if you try to do it alone, you're not going to. People are going to help. Even people you never knew. I would not have my career if it was not for this guy from the Salvation Army, right? I never even met the guy. He doesn't know me. He helped me, right? You're going to need help. You're going to get help. You're not going to do it alone. So my dad goes to Columbus, Mississippi. He lives in a YMCA where he says he could put his hand on one wall and his hand on the door while he was laying in his bed. He graduates. He goes to work. He's pretty successful. He meets my mom, the best thing that ever happened to him or me. And then he has kids. He has my brother. He has me. When my brother's 8 and I'm 5, my mother decide he's going to go to college, just like you're doing. So he goes to college. He graduates college. I think my mother is thinking, great, we graduated college. He's going to go back to work, start making some money, and I'm going to get to stop recycling Scotch tape and aluminum foil. My dad decides he wants to get his master's. He gets his master's. Now I know my mom is certain he's going to go back to work. And she's going to get to stop making our clothes and recycling Scotch tape and aluminum foil. My dad decides to get his doctorate. Much celebration in the house, right? My dad gets his doctorate and becomes a professor of accounting at the University of Alabama. Later, led the accounting department at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. He's published textbooks. He's been on the World Accounting Standards Board. He's got proclamations from the governor of the state of Alabama. Incredible success. Think about where he started. Think about where he started. The lesson I learned, the second lesson I'd ask you to learn, don't blame your circumstances for what's going on for you. You can do anything you want to do. I lived this. I watched it. Coming from where he started, if you're willing to do the work, you can do anything you want to do. So the number, if you asked me, we have 5,500 associates in Macon. Mr. Rosser knows all of them by name. If you asked Mr. Rosser, the biggest thing, the biggest challenge we have with our associates is they blame other people and us for their problems. If they just get rid of that and decide, okay, it's entirely up to me. If I want to be great, I can be great. Purely a matter of how much work I'm willing to do. They could do anything they want to do. My dad's proof. I lived it. I've been blessed with that. It's been a big part of any success that I've had. So my dad gets his degree. He gets his doctorate. He starts teaching. Now I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Roll Tide. I grew up there. My dad taught there. My whole family went to school there. I graduate high school. I decide I'm going to go to college. I go to college at the University of Alabama, and this is what I want to be. It's my dream in life. At that point, I want to be a rock and roll drummer, right? I go to the University of Alabama as a music major, and I meet the gentleman who's going to be my percussion instructor for my time at the University of Alabama so that I can become this. In his former job, he was the timpanist with the New York Philharmonic, and he wanted to teach me to do this. Right? Not quite my dream job, right? So I got a little disillusioned with college early on. It wasn't giving me what I thought that I was after. So I did a mediocre job of college because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was a little lost. I did some music education. I did some other things. Because I was still in music, I got in the marching band. I really enjoyed that. So instead of this or this, I ended up doing a lot of this. But I liked it. I loved it a lot. I was in the Spirit of Atlanta back in 1990-something. I can't even remember the year. No, 1981. Yeah, I'm older than I look. 55. How about that? So I get interested in this, and I find out that I can go in the military and do this for a living. Good, right? So I joined the Army, thinking I'm going to do this for a living. And then I go to basic training at a place called Fort Bliss. That is not how I would describe my time in 8 weeks of basic training. But here's what I learned in basic training. That was a shock to my system, I'll be honest with you. But you will learn that you can do way more sit-ups than you ever thought you could do. You'll do them on the way to eat, before you eat, after you eat, while you're thinking about eating, between the push-ups that you got to do. You'll walk more miles than you ever walked in your life. You'll get yelled at the whole time. You'll wonder how you ever ended up there. And then you get close to the end. Plus you sleep about 3 or 4 hours a night. Then you get close to the end like I did. There's 3 days left. And all that's between you and being out of there is a physical test and an obstacle course. Your physical test, you got to run 2 miles, you got to do 25 sit-ups, and you got to do 25 push-ups. And I got the flu and a fever of like 103 or 104. So obviously I go to the drill sergeant, I'm dying, like I had to go see the doctor. He says, well, you can go see the doctor if you want, But if you have a fever and you go see the doctor's probably going to put you in the infirmary. And if he puts you in the infirmary, you're going to miss your physical test and your obstacle course. And if you miss that, you're going to have to recycle and start over. And I said, I'm feeling better. That's a true story. So what would you have done? Yeah, you just figure out how to run 2 miles with a fever. Because you'd do anything not to start over. So this isn't about me being great. You'd have done the same thing I did. You get pushed to the wall and you got to do it. You figure out a way. I ran 2 miles. I did my push-ups, sit-ups. I did my obstacle course. I got my rear end out of there. And when I got home, I went to bed. But I did it. I did not go in the military to go to basic training. I went in there to be a drummer. Basic training is probably the best thing that ever happened to me because I learned this. My last boss used to say this all the time. Don't kid yourself about what your best really is. Don't limit yourself. You think it's all you can do. You think you can't do it. You think you can't run 2 miles with 103 fever on 3 hours of sleep. You can. If you want it bad enough, you can. You can. So surround yourself with people like my last boss who has helped me my whole career, who will tell you, you can do better. Don't kid yourself about what your best really is. You got more in you. Find people that believe in you more than you do. They'll be a key to any career you decide to have. So I get out of basic training, and when you get out of basic training, you go to your A school. Which, whatever you've decided to be, if you're going to be a nuclear submarine repairman, you go to nuclear submarine repair school after that. So I went to the Armed Forces School of Music to get, I don't even remember, but I think it was maybe 6 months of training before I would go out and just be a drummer in the Army for a living, which is what I wanted to do. Remember? This is what I wanted to do. And I meet my instructor, sort of like when I was back in college, to talk to him about what I wanted to do. And this is what my instructor wanted to teach me to do. No lie. So the career I wanted when I went to school that I couldn't find at the University of Alabama, or at least I thought, I found in the military. He taught me what I wanted to learn about this. I ended up working and playing in Virginia Beach for 7 years. I pursued my musical career. I've got friends who've succeeded. I had a great time. I enjoyed it. I was pretty successful. I decided, like a lot of people do, that things you do for fun aren't as fun when they're your job sometimes. And I really liked playing music still, but I didn't love working in music. So I decided it was time for me to get a real job. Right? So I also decided I probably need to go finish my degree before I go try to get a real job. So I finished my degree at the University of Alabama and got out of the military and went on the job hunt. Now, when you tell the military that you're going to not re-enlist, at one point you kind of pass a point of no return. They wanted me to go to Germany. I said, no, I'm not going to re-enlist. They said, okay, if you don't go to Germany and you choose not to re-enlist, there's no going back. So this end date is coming to my job, and I'm looking for a new job. And I'm looking for a new job in the last big recession in the late 80s, early 90s. The job market was terrible, like it has been a lot in the last 9 years or so. I was working friends, relationships, sending resumes all over the place on my Apple II computer. Yep, we didn't have no internet or anything like that. You had to stick them in the mail, but I did have a computer I could do them on. I was networking, I was doing everything I could not find a job. I woke up on a Monday morning and decided I'm going to get out the Yellow Pages. Raise your hand if you know what the Yellow Pages is. I'm stunned. How do you know they don't exist anymore, right? That was where all the phone numbers for businesses were in those days. They're in alphabetical order. That's where you get AAA plumbing because it comes before ABC plumbing in the yellow pages. And everybody was just trying to get to the top of the yellow pages. So you picture this. Think about yourself. I think back on this and I wonder what in the world I was thinking. I seriously sat down on the floor of my apartment with the yellow pages this big and did this for hours. Just company by company. Whoop. Skipped. I did this. Company by company. Just alphabetically. Are you hiring? Are you hiring? Are you hiring? Somebody give me an interview. I got into insurance. I called Allstate, whoever else was in there. I get to the G's. I call this company called Geico or whatever it was. Geico. I had no idea. I called them. I talked to a lady named Marnie Sanders. I will never forget. I still send her an email every anniversary I have. Luckiest day of my life. I called. I said, are you hiring? And she said, do you have your degree? And I'm like, yes. I went back and finished. Thank goodness, right? Because if my answer to that question had been no, she'd have said, we're not hiring anyone. And I would have gone to Farmers or whoever's next in the phone book. I said yes, and she said, well, if you had called me on Friday, I would have said we're not hiring. But we had a staff meeting on Monday morning. We all do. I still do. And we decided this morning to hire 2 college graduates into our telephone claim representative job. When can you be here for an interview? I said, 15 minutes. I had been calling people for 2 hours. I went and put a shirt and a tie on. I had 1 tie, 1 decent shirt, 2 pairs of pants, and 1 coat. And I put one of those outfits on. I went to an interview. I had to go back 3 days in a row. I shuffled the pants and the shirt as best I could. Just please don't think I only have 1 pair, because it's all I had. I got the job. Oh, it's the best thing. Luckiest day of my life, right? If I had called 2 days before, they would have said, we're not hiring. I would have moved on. So I skipped a lesson. I'm going to do number 5. We'll go back to number 4. How about that? You're going to need some luck. But you got to be you got to have done the things for luck to work for you, right? If I had not finished my degree, would I have been lucky on that Monday? My luck would have been out. If I had not decided to get out the stupid yellow pages, would I have gotten lucky on that Monday? I mean, desperation, you do things. You run 2 miles with a fever if you have to. You get out the yellow pages if you have to. Some luck's gonna play in a good career. I'm convinced of that. But you got to be ready to take advantage of it when it comes, right? So I start my career with Geico in 1992. And about 6 months later, I got promoted. And I got a key to the office so I could let myself in and let myself out, because they got tired of staying until 8 o'clock to lock up after I left. I'd been through basic training. Insurance was easy. I enjoyed doing it. So I got promoted, and then the office was very small, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity to get promoted anymore. But I was ambitious. I was really starting my real career at 30, and I felt like I was a little late. So I was really ambitious. I wanted to go quickly. So I started looking around for bigger Geico offices that might have more opportunity. I looked in all of our jobs are posted on a computer screen. In those days, it was that green screen that you see in spy movies, right? Where it's just words. There's no pictures or anything. That's what we had. And I looked at the Macon job post. And the job post in Virginia Beach where I lived was like 2 pages, like 10 jobs on it. I looked at the Macon job post, and it's pages and pages and pages, right? We always have dozens of jobs, but I'm looking through there going, oh my Lord, this place is fantastic. Plus I was from the South. I wanted to get back. So I posted to come to Macon at the same level job, no raise or anything else. Just let me go to Macon. I'll move myself, let me go. The company allowed me to do that, so I loaded up a U-Haul and I moved myself to Macon. I had never been to Macon before until I arrived in a U-Haul. I didn't care what it looked like. I was ambitious. I wanted an opportunity. So I get to Macon, and when I get to Macon, so I was a telephone claim representative 2 in Virginia Beach. And remember, I just asked to come to Macon at the same job. So I already knew how to do it. Well, Macon's point of view about that was, if you weren't trained in Macon, you probably weren't trained all that well. So we're going to put you back through TCR2 training. I didn't want to go back through TCR2 training. So who has something to write with? No, okay. Somebody actually still has a pen. I was afraid I was going to have someone type it in your phone. So write down this name, Bill Roberts. We'll use it later. Behind me in that classroom was a guy named Bill Roberts. You'll hear that name again. So I take that TCR2 class. I do well, I get promoted. I got promoted a second time. And an opportunity came up to take a promotion and go to my first job in management in Lakeland, Florida. So I took it. I'd never been to Lakeland, Florida. I moved to Lakeland, another U-Haul, because I wanted to be in management. It's really what I thought I wanted to do. So I moved to Macon at the best possible time. I moved to Macon. It was a small claim office for Geico. We only had 100 people in it. 10 years later, there were over 2,000 people in that office. If you get in an office that goes from 100 people to 2,000, you will get promoted just for getting out of bed. But you're growing so fast. If you show up for work every day and do decently, you can make a career out of that. I got a lot of promotions that way. I went all the way from my first supervisor job to a director of claims job in Lakeland without ever having to move. I met my wife there. Second best thing that ever happened to me other than my mom. I wouldn't be here if not for my mom, so got to start with her. So I'm a claim director. That means you have the whole liability claim department's your responsibility. I'm having a ball. I'm just in love with my job. Probably about 16 years with the company at that point. And now my dream is I want to make claim assistant vice president. It was the next job up. And I get that. I'm happy for the rest of my career. I want to be a claim AVP. So I'm working my tail off at my director job. Remember, we started with, you got to be great at the job you have, right? I have a really good boss who I love, who's promoting me. My opinion, our results are just fantastic. We got some of the best results in the whole company. Surely people think I'm the best claim director in the company. That promotion's coming for me. And the second year goes by, and the third year goes by, and the fourth year goes by, and that job's not coming for me, and I'm getting frustrated. I thought about leaving the company. Not the first time. If you get in a good job with a good company and you think about leaving, you're not the only one, but grass isn't always greener. I had good people who taught me out of that, but I thought about leaving. I had a good boss who was on my side. He's like, Rhett, just stick with it. You know, this is going to happen for you. It really is. I know it is. You're doing a great job. So that boss got promoted to a job at our home office where all these AVP decisions get made. So he gets around the people who make these decisions. He called me about, I think, 3 months later. And he said, Rhett, I know what it is. I've found out the problem. So I'm great. Tell me, right? He says, they just don't know you like I do. If they could see the you that I know, that they're going to fall in love with you, you're going to get that job. So there's a job open here at the plaza. That's what we call our home office, I'm sorry, in Washington, D.C. You should post for that job and come do that job. And I said something really mature like, I'm not going to do it and you can't make me. It was a job I didn't want. My pride was getting in the way. I thought I was doing a great job. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to move. I'm doing a great, you shouldn't ask me to move. I don't want to do the job. I'm not going to do it. It sounds really smart, we talk about now, right? But it made sense at the time. You're going to have those moments. This guy called me again the following day. He said, Rhett, look, I understand how you feel, but seriously, I know this. I know this. If you just came up here and took this job, they'd see the you that I know, and you're going to get the job you've been saying you've been after your whole career. You're going to get it. I know you are. Just take this job, you know. And I said something like, what part of no didn't you understand? Not my best day. He called me again the next day. Again, I'm not lying. He called me again the next day. He said, look, Rhett, just trust me. You got to do this, you know. So finally, I'm like, okay. If that's what I have to do, I'll do it. So my wife and I moved to Washington, D.C. to do this job that I'm really not looking forward to doing. I'm not a big city guy. I'm not all that excited about going to Washington, D.C., but I'm doing it because I feel like it's the right step for my career. So we have a program at Geico called the Executive Assistant Program. And that's a program we use to really the purpose is to train people we think have the potential to be future officers. I won't bore you with what we do in that program, but it's a leap to go from director to officer. So we have some training in place to kind of help do that. So the job that I don't want to do, I'm committed to at least 18 months to do that job. And then there's no guarantees after that. It just, you get whatever you get. You might go back to the job you had. 10 months into my 18-month job, the executive vice president called me up to his office and asked me if I wanted to be an executive assistant. Right? Right? My day has come finally. Finally, after all this work, all these years, doing this job I didn't really want to do, which turned out to be kind of fun anyway, by the way. I finally have what I'm after. So, here's what I'd tell you. You think your career path is going to be straight. This is what you think it's going to look like. This is not what it's going to look like. It might not be straight or clear, but that's okay. It can still work out. In case you can't figure it out, I'm pretty thankful for the guy that called me 3 days in a row. So I'm in the executive assistant program. And that's supposed to last a year. And during that year, my wife and I get the wonderful news that she's pregnant. We're going to have our first child, our son, who's 7 now. So we are in... Our son is born February 3rd. We're in Florida because that's where her parents are to help. And I still have about 4 months left in the executive assistant program. And we have an officer meeting every February right before Valentine's Day to do prior year's results. As an executive assistant, I'm supposed to go to that meeting. I take a lot of notes in that meeting, and I learn a lot by listening. So the baby's a newborn. We got about 3 days or so in there, and I tell Natalie, okay, I got to leave. I got to go to home office for 3 days. And I remember my wife asking me, there are moments in your life you never forget. This is one of them. My wife said, do you really have to go? I mean, we just got home with the baby, right? You remember that, don't you? That's my wife back there. And I said, look, it's just 2 days. I'm leaving on Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday. I'll take 2 weeks off. We'll figure this whole 3 hours of sleep thing out. We'll get the baby in a routine. Then, we'll be in Florida for another 2 months, 2.5 months. Your mom can help. Then we'll go back to D.C. in probably another month, and then, we'll see what happens after that. So I go to the officer meeting. I get there on Wednesday. I call my boss and say, hey, I'm here. I'll see you in the morning at the officer meeting. And he says, hey, why don't you come up and see me about 3 o'clock? And so I'm sure, I'll come see you. And I'm assuming he's going to say, how's your wife? How's the baby? How are things? How much longer you think you're going to be in Florida? When are you coming back? What's kind of the plan? So I go up and I see him and I sit down at a table with him, and he looks at me and he says, how does California sound to you? Exact words, right? Wow. I don't remember what I said. I really don't. It's a little blurry. I probably, to be honest, said some things I wish I hadn't, because it was another director job. And in my mind, I thought, I shouldn't have to do another director job. And I just had a baby, and this is seriously inconvenient for me. And my wife might leave me. And we had a talk, and at the end, he looked at me, the senior vice president, and he said, Rhett, this is something we really just need you to do. We need you. So I left his office. We had a condominium up the street that my wife and I stayed in. My wife was still in Florida, right? So I got to go back to the condo and call my wife. This is what I looked like walking to my condo. I had to call my wife. I still remember the edge of the bed I sat on, and tell her, well, not only am I not going to get to take the next 2 weeks of work off, we're also not going to be able to spend the next 2 months in Florida. We got to come back here and get ready to move to San Diego. About as far from your mom and family as we could possibly get. She's still here. There was a little silence on the phone. But we worked through it. Remember, you're not going to do it alone. At one point, it's people that help your family that you don't know about. Then there's people that call you 3 days in a row to try to help you out. You're not going to do it alone. And then you're going to get to a point where you're going to have family involved. And they're going to be part of it. And you're not going to be able to do it alone. It's going to be a partnership. You're going to get kids involved and stuff. Everybody ends up in it. You're not going to do it alone. So we go to California, and somehow I get the wits about me. Okay, I'm going to do the best job I can possibly do when I get to California. I'm going to make the best of this, right? 10 months later, I made claim AVP. 10 months later. 10 months is like a magic number for me, right? I do something I don't want to do. 10 months later, something good happens for me. So we go to Tucson, Arizona. I'm a claim AVP now. I think this is where I wanted to be the whole time. I'm happy. We have our son. He's growing up. Here's the lesson. Don't be selfish. This is hard, though. Sometimes it's just not about you. You're going to work for somebody who's running a business, and the business has needs. And it ain't all about you. You're going to have to do some things just because it's good for the company. You're going to teach an institution like this, you're going to have to do some things just because it's good for the school. Be an asset, right? I'm all wound up about I shouldn't have to go to California. Well, if my boss was here to talk about it, he'd have said, well, heck, I know that. I just needed him to go to California. I wasn't trying to be mean to him. The company needed him. He was great. He was talented. He's exactly what we needed in California. And we knew that he would knock it out of the park. And we knew that we would probably make him a claim AVP. So he would probably have a totally different point of view on it. Does that make sense? But you get stuck being selfish. You look at it only from your point of view. What if I had said, no, I'm just not going to do it? He wouldn't have called me 3 days in a row like the other guy did. So this is the second time, fortunately, people have been good enough to me to get me through this. But try to understand there's another person in this relationship, the company, that needs things, and that's okay. And sometimes you got to not be selfish and you got to do it. So I'm enjoying my life as a claim AVP. I'm going to give you another name. The regional vice president in San Diego when I was there for that 10 months, his name was Greg Kolinsky. Write that name down. We'll need that one again too. So I go to Tucson as an AVP. My boss is Martha Furness. You can write that name down too. We're enjoying life. I'm a claim AVP. I'm all I ever wanted to be. My wife and I are just talking about the future. We get fortunate enough to get pregnant again. This time it's a girl, the first girl in my family. My mom had 2 sons, 4 grandsons, and we're going to have a granddaughter. So we're excited. Everything's great. I go to an officer meeting in February. These February officer meetings are tough. I go to an officer meeting in February. The very same senior vice president says, why don't you come see me? You think I'm making that up? It was the same guy. I love him. I do. And I'm having a conversation with him, and he says, you know, Tony, who is our CEO, really likes any future regional vice presidents to kind of go through this home office claim vice president job. You know, and it's probably coming open soon. You know, might want to be thinking about what that would be like. So one part of me is thinking, he's seriously thinking about me for RVP? I don't think I can even be an RVP. I'm not sure I want to be an RVP. And the other part of me is thinking about this claim AVP job, this claim vice president job, because there's a lot of travel involved with that job. It's a good bit of time away from home. And my wife at that point was 7 months pregnant with our daughter. So I'm thinking, how am I going to have that conversation? That we might have to go back to Washington, D.C., and I may be traveling a lot while she has 2 kids at home, one of them a newborn. How am I going to talk to her about that? So I go back home and I talk to her about that, and we just kind of try to get our head around it. My wife always starts talking about the bright side of it. She says, I really enjoyed living in D.C. There's so much for our kids to see and do. There's so much culture in D.C. We can make this work. We can go back to D.C. And I'm like, but I'll be traveling all the time. And she's like, yeah, it'll be okay, you know. So the time goes by, and we have that baby, and the job gets filled by somebody else. And I'm thinking, whew, we're out of the woods. Let's just enjoy our baby. Everything will be great. We also have an officer meeting in June every year. And it is late May. And I'm working my email. I get like 250, 300 emails a day. I'm working my email like I do every other day. And there's an email in my box from my CEO's assistant saying, Tony would like you to call him. Why does my CEO want me to call him? So I called him. And he said, are you coming to the officer meeting next week? And I said, sure, I'm coming. He said, well, why don't you come up like 30 minutes early and just talk to me for a while? Okay. So I go home thinking, what does Tony want to talk to me about? The other job's been filled. It can't be that. What's he want to talk to me about? So I talked to Natalie. she's like, what do you say? I don't really know. Are jobs coming? I don't think any jobs are coming up. I'm not really sure what this is about. So I go sit down with Tony, and he talks to me for a little while, and he says, Rhett, the regional vice president in Macon, Georgia is about to retire. And I wonder if you'd be interested in that job if we offered it to you. My first reaction, what? Then I get to walk to a telephone from Washington, D.C. this time to call my wife. Now I'm Superman. We are going to be a regional vice president. I'm Superman. I call my wife. I give her the good news. This is as close as we can be to her family and mine. Best possible thing that could happen to us. It takes a village. What names? So, regional vice president kind of decisions get made by our executive officers. They get made by a group of people at the made by a lot of people. I'm oversimplifying, but clearly they're involved in these decisions, right? So the first name I gave you was what? Bill Roberts. That guy that sat behind me in that class I didn't want to go to in Macon, at this point is the president of the company and chief operating officer. What's the next name I gave you? Greg Kolinsky, the regional vice president in San Diego that I didn't want to go to, who I made a good impression on, is now the chief investment officer for the company. I'm sorry, the chief information officer. I do that all the time. What's the other name I gave you? Martha Furness is very good friends with Seth Engel, who is a senior vice president with responsibility for claims for the entire company. 3 of the 5 people who make those decisions I got close to through those doing things I didn't really want to do. Right? It takes a village. You're not going to do it by yourself. You never know the person you're making an impression on, what part they will play in your career. You never know. So the lesson is what? Always make a good impression on people. It all matters who you are. And even on dark days, nobody expects you to be perfect, but even on dark days, who you are matters. So here's what I think about my career. Didn't I just go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs? In case you think we created this like 1908, it's still working. Now, I am self-actualizing right now. Having the time of my life. I'm challenged in my job. I got a beautiful family. We love where we live. We love doing things like this. I am living the dream 25 years later. Right? But let's recap what we learned along the way. You can do anything you want if you're willing to do the work, right? You are not going to do it alone. Don't kid yourself about what your best really is. You're going to need to be lucky. Be ready to be lucky. Be prepared to be lucky. The path won't be all that straight, and that's okay. Don't be selfish. It takes a village. That's my 25-year career and the perfect straight path that it took, right? And I'll have one final point I'll make at the end, but right now we can talk about anything you want for a little while. I'd love to take questions if you want to do that. Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I don't really have a question, but I can relate to the story about the yellow pages.
Yeah.
I actually pulled the yellow pages out, and I'm in the hotel industry now, and I actually flipped through the yellow pages and did exactly what you did. And the guy said, "Come in and fill out the application now. He's hiring." So I filled out the application, and I had no experience in hospitality. And I went home and he called me, went into the interview, and the reason why I got the job is because of my penmanship on the application.
You never know, right?
You never know.
You never know.
But just because I wrote neat enough, he called me in and actually hired. And I did work the hard work, and I sat there and went through the whole
Sure. You got to have all the rest, right? But you never know what's going to give you that first step and that opportunity.
It actually happened twice. I got out of that and I went into the insurance industry, and I flipped again and I got a call at Allstate, and I worked for the agency at Allstate.
Got a very good friend that works for Allstate still. Cool. Questions, anybody? Yes, ma'am. So I'd be a really long answer. We tried to hold it back. I'll give you two keys to it. One, understand that everyone's motivated. We can get thinking people aren't because they don't perform like everybody else does. Everyone's motivated. You don't get through teenage years without having a whole lot of resourcefulness. Everyone's motivated just by different things. So the key to motivating people is seeking what they care about. So you got to learn to ask a lot of questions and listen to what they care about. And then repeat this stuff a lot. Connect what they care about with these lessons and repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. We've been saying the same thing to our son for 7 years. Somebody still doesn't get it, you still say it, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. So you repeat a lot. You simplify and you repeat a lot. And you try to make it, I mean, I hope you all think it's common sense. It should be. It's easier to teach if it is. If it gets too complex, it's hard to teach. Especially when I got 2,200 people. It's hard to teach 2,000 people anything. But if it's simple, obvious, common sense, and believable, it greases the skids a lot. And then you have to repeat it a lot. Yes, ma'am.
How did you triumph over your weaknesses throughout your career?
Can you repeat the question?
That's a good idea. She said, how did I triumph over weaknesses? Well, first of all, I still have some. They don't go away. You just try to get better at them, right? I had a lot of good help from people one of the good things about our company is we recognize people have weaknesses and we're really willing to work with people on them and help them get better in places that they're weak. But you got to be persistent, you know? Having good support at home helps a lot because there's tough days. Especially when you're finding out what one of your weaknesses is. That's kind of tough. The challenge is to get somebody not to get too down about that and go, okay, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? I had a pretty tough day about 2 months ago. My wife will still remember it. I came home pretty beat up. And my boss called me. He knew about it. And he said, how you doing? And I said, give me about 2 days. 2 days, I'll get a little squirrely for about 2 days. And then that morning, I'll probably wake up and go, okay, what am I going to do about it? So I've been a little blessed by that. But I don't want to give you this idea that you just shrug it off. You don't. I mean, it's tough if you're finding out something you don't do all that well. But you got to learn to persevere. You got to get up, right? Oh, there's a good quote. It's a Confucius, I think. Fall down 7 times and get up 8. I like quotes a lot, too. So I keep a lot of those in my head. Thomas Edison, about all the times he failed. I know 1,000 ways things don't work. Michael Jordan has a lot of quotes about all the times he failed, right? So I read a lot, read about people who succeed, understand how many times they failed. It makes you feel a little better about it when you're failing. Everybody fails, right? Yes, sir.
Did you have any mentors?
Oh, bunches of them. So that guy that called me 3 days in a row is my boss again. But he mentored me the whole time in between. There was probably 10 years in between that he was not my boss. He mentored me the whole time. Martha Furness, I still call her. Still call people I have a relationship that I think get me because they'll tell me when I'm being stupid. And that's what you really want, right? You want someone who can be honest with you. Or if they say, you know what, you're right, and you know you're right, and I know you got this, and I know you can get through it, and they'll support you. But you also want them to go, this doesn't sound like you. I'm not sure you're thinking about this clearly. You need people who can be really honest, and a boss will struggle to do that. It helps to have someone who's not your boss that really knows you, that you know you can, because sometimes you call and say, I'm not sure my boss is very happy with me right now. And you need someone you can talk to, right? But yeah, you need mentors. Seek them. Don't wait for them to show up at your door. Seek them. Can be professors that you really had an attachment with. It doesn't have to be people in your business. For me, it's people at Geico, though. Anything else? All right. Well, let me make one more point. I'll let you go. I started with my dad. I'm going to end with my mom. My mom told me every day that I can remember, you can do it. Believe in yourself, you can do it. Every night I put my son to bed, I tell him, you can do anything you want. Every night I put my daughter to bed, I tell her, you can be anything you want to be. It matters what people tell you and what you tell yourself. So I carry this quote with me all the time. Spare Brian, he was there when I went to Alabama. Believe in yourself, dedication, pride, and you don't quit, you'll be a winner. You'll succeed in anything you want to. So find that for you. Find that quote that you keep in your pocket. It'll help you along the way. Get mentors who will support it with you. And if I can ever do anything for you, I'm rayburn@geico.com. Shoot me a note. I'll be happy to help you out, okay? Otherwise, I really appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too.
Thank you, Rhett, for this inspiring and really informative talk. I thought we learned a lot from his personal story and his success in his career. On behalf of Clayton State University, President Dr. Tim Hines, who's right there, Provost Dr. Demick, my faculty and staff colleagues and students, I would like to present a token of appreciation. It says, in appreciation of your commitment, time, and willingness in sharing your expertise and knowledge with the students, faculty, and staff at Clayton State University.
That's nice. Thank you.